UK Talk Radio, straight over to New York now, and I'm more than intrigued to have David Weiss on the line, all the way from New York, who some of you may have heard of. This is a subject I've never, ever discussed before, I can honestly say. David Weiss is the creator of the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon and Zodiac Clock app, and also of the Flat Earth podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, David. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's always a fun discussion to have with people that believe we live on a spinning ball flying through space.
Yes, well, I was going to say, I love the way you put it. I love the wording there, David. Now, I suppose it's true that when you're walking down the street, or doing whatever you're doing on this Earth plane, it certainly wouldn't seem obvious that we're spinning around and going through space, would it? And a lot of people would have no idea if, of course, they hadn't been told that. And of course, a couple of hundred years ago, most people would have had no idea, David.
So it's such a big topic. This is, if you were taught nothing about the Earth and somebody came and tried to tell you that it's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, it's orbiting at 66,600 miles an hour, it's chasing the sun at 660,000 miles per hour, and it's moving sideways at close to 2 million miles per hour, you would think that person was a lunatic. But that's the official story of what our Earth is. And the science will say, well, it's so big and we're so small, you wouldn't notice it. You're like an amoeba on a giant ball. You couldn't tell it. All of that is pseudoscience. So when I first heard about flat Earth, I refused to look at a video. I wouldn't watch a 1-minute video. Dumbest thing ever. I banned people from our social media for even suggesting that I look at it. And then I was forced to look, and I went in with a closed mind. I said, I'm going to disprove flat Earth and prove the globe. There's 1 million proofs for the globe, and there's 0 proofs for flat Earth. Well, the absolute opposite is true. There's no proofs for the globe. None. And there's tons of proofs for the flat Earth. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So get ready. Buckle your seatbelt, because here we go.
I mean, I would have said that certainly the Earth is flat, or certainly seems flat as far as the horizon, David.
Yeah. So here's the other thing. People that believe we live in the ball have a few things in common. One is they've never really looked into it. They just believe what they were taught from the earliest school days, even before school. And then they also have a false idea of what the flat Earth is. They think flat earthers believe that we're a pancake floating in space with other round planets or even other flat planets. That's not true. They believe because they Googled, hey, is the Earth flat? And they ended up at the Flat Earth Society. Well, the Flat Earth Society is a government-run disinformation site to make you laugh at flat Earth. They say flat earthers believe that the Earth is rising at 9.8 meters per second, and that causes gravity. No flat earther believes that. The other thing that they have in common is they don't know what the globe model is. All those motions that I just told you before, you probably didn't know them off the top of your head. When you really think about them, they make no sense. We're moving billions of miles a year, trillions of miles a decade, and somehow you can go to certain monuments and look through a tiny little hole, and there's the North Star. It never moves. How is that possible on a spinning, twirling, whirling, vortexing world going at unimaginable speeds? None of it makes any sense when you look. But they've programmed us not to look.
In your view, David, is the globe, is the Earth moving at all?
Not at all. So this is the way I describe it. So if it's not a disk floating in space, what is it? How come no one's falling off the edge? How come no one's taking a picture of the edge? Well, the edge of our world is like the edge of a lake. We live in the world pond, I call it, the world lake. Puddle, pond, lake, it's just different sizes. So what is the puddle? What is the pond? What is the lake? It's the low spot in the land where all the water accumulates, and the edge of a lake is just where the land is consistently higher than the water's edge. So what large bodies of water need a container. A lake's container are the mountains that surround it, or the hills, the higher lands that surround it. So think of the world's oceans as a giant lake. What's all of the continents or the islands, they're all surrounded by water, but what's that water surrounded by? It's surrounded by higher land. Did you know that the highest land on Earth is Antarctica? Antarctica is not a continent at the bottom of a ball spinning through an infinite vacuum. That's silly. Antarctica is the land that surrounds the world pond. It's the higher land. If you sail to Antarctica, you're not allowed to go there, by the way, except on a guided tour, and the land is like 200 feet over your head. It's the container. It's the shoreline of our world. What's beyond Antarctica? I don't know. Since 1959, there's been a worldwide treaty, the fact that says nobody can independently explore Antarctica until the year 2041. It can't even be questioned until then. So what is out there? Well, we don't know, but Antarctica is likely bigger than all of the continents and all of the oceans combined. And what's beyond there? We don't know. Maybe it goes on forever, like infinite space, and the heliocentric model.
David, when and why did you found the Flat Earth podcast, and how many years ago was it that this passion and this fascination really ignited itself within you?
Yeah, so I was a businessman. I worked in corporate America. I started my own company, doing extremely well, making more money than I ever thought I could make. And on the side, I was doing a podcast, a fun conspiracy comedy-ish podcast, where we looked into real conspiracies of the world and tried to make jokes out. We had one of the third member was trying to make jokes out of it, and then people started sending me, as I said earlier, "Hey Dave, have you looked into Flat Earth?" And I would delete, ban from our social media. You're too dumb to even listen to us. And then I was forced to look, and after a couple of weeks, I was like, I can't find any proof of the globe, and there's so many proofs of Flat Earth. I actually didn't just watch a video. I bought expensive equipment and went out and did measurements, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. Globe math, not Flat Earth math, says just at 10 miles there should be 66 feet of drop. At 100 miles there should be 6,000 feet of drop, right? But we can see too far. We can see way too far. There's no curvature. So that kind of took over a little bit, and my podcast kind of ended after 3 years, and then I started the Flat Earth podcast. I'm like, this is too interesting to not address. And then I realized the importance of, people say, this is what happens. People say, well, what about ships over the horizon? And I show them why ships appear to go over the horizon and why they're not going over the horizon. And they say, what about Aristophanes, sticks and shadows? What about sunsets over the ocean? What about seasons? And when I explain all those things away and show you how they really work, and you realize that seasons only make sense on a flat Earth, and then the people throw up their hands and go, well, what does it matter? What does it matter, the shape of the Earth? And my answer is it does not matter at all. It's the lie that matters. They, who are they, but we can get into that, they, the controllers of our world, the people that are controlling our minds, they want you to believe that you're on a spinning ball flying through an infinite universe with tons of other spinning balls, where an asteroid could take you out at any time, where there's all of these fear things, so you give up your God-given free will. They don't want you to know that you are at the center of creation, that you are a spirit of God living here on Earth with, your soul. I look at it as like your soul is a piece of God, and you're having an experience here in this realm, expanding the mind of God. And your only goal here is to not lose control of your soul and not break anyone else's free will. Don't steal, don't kill, don't interfere with anyone else's free will. Go ahead.
David Weiss, why would the powers that be or the people running this world not want human beings to know the truth? Why would they want us to think or believe or see the Earth as round, David?
Because that makes us insignificant. It makes us, there's lots of people that have, found God, that are good people, that are doing stuff. But if you live in fear, you're more selfish. You're more divided. They've divided us up by countries, by religions, by political parties, sports teams, races, colors, sexes. They keep dividing, because they know if we all get together and we are the many, they are the nothing. And they would have no power over us. The only power that they have is the power that we give them in our minds. And they have us fooled, thinking that they can take our free will, and they can't. They can They can trick us into giving it away willingly, and that's what everybody does all of the time. So what difference does it make? You know, if you had a wild mountain lion and you kept him in your quarter-acre yard with a fence, he's not going to be happy. He's going to be pacing back and forth. But if you put him in a safari park with a 500-mile round fence, you know, that he can't get over, one day he's going to find that fence, he's going to look at it and go, a fence. He's going to turn around, he's going to go back in, he's going to live his life. But if you put a human in there, I don't care how big that fence is. As soon as he sees the fence, he's going to go, what's on the other side? I got to go. So they didn't put a fence around us. They put us on a ball. The ball is the fence. The ball is a prison. What if beyond Antarctica, across the plain, was more oceans and more territory? We might call that extra terra, extra land, extra territory. Well, you know, maybe there's people that live out there. Maybe there's advanced civilizations that live out there. And if they came over here, I would call them extraterrestrials from the outer space beyond Antarctica. Not flying through space, you know, coming from impossibly distant stars. And by the way, the distance of the stars and the size and everything they do is scientifically provable, impossible to see. Impossible to see. But on a magnitude that you can't even fathom. And
David.
I do tons of interviews with visuals so you can actually see this stuff. I'm telling you, once you look into this, you cannot unsee it.
David, are there any other planets? Are there any planets that are round? Is the moon round?
Yeah, the moon sure looks round, but I ask you, look up at the lights in your ceiling right now and tell me what shape your floor is. There's no correlation. You know, look at the pool balls on a pool table and tell me what shape the table is. There's no correlation there whatsoever. But when we say planets, the only proof you have of planets are images, not photos, NASA gives you and Disney gives you. And you can also look up through a telescope and you can see a light, not a terra firma. You can see something, you know, when you look up and see Mars in the sky, it's the brightest star in the sky. It's kind of red. And you have to believe that that dusty, dirty ball is reflecting a distant sun all the way back to you where it's brighter than a burning star. None of it makes sense when you actually add science to it and you understand the inverse square law of light, how light travels, how light reflects. There's no way you can see that. When we look up and we see these wandering stars, they're in the Earth system. They're here. Everything we see in the sky is within the Earth system. We don't know how big they are. We don't know how far they are, but they're very close. If you look at the full moon on a...
Yeah. David, forgive me, are you saying that people that deride and attack and criticize and mock, for want of a better term, flat earthers, are doing that because they are misguided as to what you really believe and they don't fully understand what you believe, and that's why they mock you?
That's right. What they think we believe is not what we believe, and they don't understand. They haven't looked into it, so they're mocking us for something that we would mock also. If someone told me flat earthers believe, you know, this nonsense, I'd be like, that's crazy. But it's not about belief. Belief is the enemy of knowing. You believe you live on a ball. If I asked you, if we had more time, I would say, what's one thing that makes you think you live on a ball? And if we talked for a little bit, or you checked out my app, you would realize you have nothing. There's nothing. You know, people say photos. Well, there are no photos of Earth. Well, what about the blue marble? You know, what about the two pictures that NASA's given us? Well, you compare them and do scientific measurements on them. None of it makes any sense.
David Weiss, am I right in suspecting that the most common question or the most common criticism that you get directed your way is, well, if the Earth is flat, why do people not fall off the edge and fall off the Earth? How often do you get that question? Is that the biggest question you get?
I get it all the time, even after I explain how there is no edge, because people are so programmed. And I did it too. If you were on a lake in Kansas or, you know, wherever, in the middle of some big flat area, and you sailed to the edge of the lake, could you fall off the lake? The answer is no, because there's land there. When you get to Antarctica, there's tens of thousands of miles, maybe hundreds of thousands of miles of land. We don't know because no one's allowed to go beyond the 60th parallel with any fuel. It's off limits by all countries. people have tried. They've even got permission from their little rogue countries that gave them permission, and they were stopped by military force, threatened to be sunk, turned around, sent home, arrested, and jailed. So what's beyond Antarctica? No civilian is allowed to go there and find out. So where's the edge? I don't know. There may never be an edge. Maybe it goes on forever.
How many years did you say you'd been on this particular journey, David?
6 years.
6 years. Oh, right. So relatively recent then.
Well,
Yeah. How many people?
There is an awakening. People think that, hey, the Greeks figured it out 2,000 years ago. That's a made-up story about Aristophanes. I interviewed a woman in February of 2020. She's 102 years old, and I was interviewing her about the World's Fairs that she went to in New York, and she had such a memory of her 5th birthday party. I asked her where she went to school, elementary school. She knew the teacher, the street, the school name, everything, even kids in her class. And I said, what did they teach you in science about school? And she said, they taught me the earth was flat. Then we found another woman from Croatia who said in the 1930s, she was in the 1920s, 1930s, all of Croatia, all of the schools were teaching flat earth. So then we started looking at microfilm and newspapers. And we found from the early 1900s a bunch of articles about teachers that were being persecuted and threatened with jail for trying to introduce the heliocentric system into the public school system. Okay?
David.
So this entire thing happened in the early 1900s. The hijacking of our world happened in the early 1900s.
David, do you know roughly how many? Do you have a rough figure for how many people in the United States, for example, are subscribers or members affiliated with this flat Earth fraternity, if you like? Do you know roughly how many people in the US you've got that are close
it's really
followers?
Hard to say. It's hard to say, but we have conferences all the time.
Oh yeah.
And, I did a little meetup, a local meetup, and 200 people showed up. I was like, I thought 10 or 20 people were going to show up. They did a survey in Brazil, and 10 million people said they think the Earth is flat. Okay, in Brazil alone, 10 million people are questioning the globe. Now, there's the flat earthers. We're like trying to figure out: are there multiple puddles? Are there circular? Are there lands circling our puddle? There's all sorts of speculation on what it is, but what we all agree on and can scientifically prove using real science is that the heliocentric system is impossible. Nothing exploded, created everything, and then all of the matter, all of the rocks turned into balls, and all of the gases turned into bigger gas balls, leaving a vacuum in between. How does gas turn into a ball, leaving a vacuum next to it without a container? None of it makes sense. It breaks every scientific law there is.
David, this has been a great introduction, a great overview. We've barely scratched the surface, but I'm grateful that you've got in touch with us and given us this overview, David. Now, how can people find you and contact you online? And what's your website called, please? Could you give our listeners some pointers, please?
Sure. So real quick, if you try to Google Flat Earth, you're going to get served garbage. There's so much garbage on there, you'll have a hard time finding any of the real videos. They're shadow banned. They're still there, but you can find them. So I created the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app for Android and Apple. And what it does is every day it shows you a model of how it works. It shows you how seasons work. It shows you how day and night works. It shows you everything. There's a featured video every day, and this is the challenge I have. I'm offering a Bitcoin for anybody that can come up with one proof of the globe if they take the Flat Earth Challenge. Watch the daily video every day for 2 weeks, short ones during the week, little longer ones on the weekend. And if you have any proofs of the globe, send it to me at info@theflatearthpodcast.com. And also, if anybody wants to interview me, that's the contact address. But before you do it, you have to hit the question mark, which is the frequently asked questions, and up come the top 21 questions. And there's playlists of videos that will not be served to you online. You will not find these easily online unless you know the exact name and channel name. And it's all done by categories. And every question you have, like what about eclipses? What about boats over the horizon? What about southern flights? Well, all of the stuff. It's all answered in there. My podcast, my Instagram, and my website, all by the same name, The Flat Earth Podcast. And My YouTube channel, lots of short videos, DITRH. It's the initials for Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, DITRH. But the best way, if you want to learn about Flat Earth, is take the Flat Earth app challenge.
Well, I was going to...
Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app.
Well, David, I was going to say you certainly haven't left me feeling flat about this subject, and you've given us a very well-rounded introduction to the subject, so thank you very much.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thank you, David. That was David Weiss on UK Talk Radio, all the way from New York.